if you make it easy to reasonably profitably create a lot of additional generative capacity, the market will do that. That will not only not drive up rates because of the AI workload, hopefully it'll drive it down for everything. And we've talked a lot about the importance of energy to AI. Energy is just really important to quality of life. One of the things that seems to me the most consistent throughout history is every time the cost of energy falls, the quality of life goes up. And so doing a lot to make energy cheaper, in the short term, I think this probably looks like more natural gas, although there are some applications where I think solar can really help. In the medium term, I hope it's advanced nuclear, fission and fusion. More energy is important well beyond AI. In some sense, we have these dual revolutions going of AI and energy, the ability to have new ideas and the ability to get them done, to make them happen in the physical world where we all live. Like, these are kind of the limiting reagents of prosperity, and let's have a lot more.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, we've talked about how significant power is to the success here. What role do you think Microsoft and other tech leaders have in developing energy, and particularly the right type of energy?
I think we have a tremendous responsibility to contribute to the solution, and I think Sam helped with his list. I would highlight two things, and I just would, illustrate it with what we do everywhere, but most recently with a major site in southeastern Wisconsin. We went from zero, basically, to becoming the largest industrial user of electricity in the state, roughly 400 megawatts. And, so we worked with the local utility. We made the investment to help and really enable them to expand their electricity generation. Now, that electricity then needed to be delivered from their power plant through the grid to our data center. We went to the Public Utilities Commission and we proposed a rate increase on ourselves because we thought it was important that we pay for that improvement to the grid so that the neighbors, so to speak, would not have to. And I think what it really illustrates is the collaborative partnerships that are needed to provide the capital, to do the construction, to improve the grid, and to be, I think, very sensitive to the community as a whole.
Thank you. Mr. Altman, let me come back to you. I was a small business owner. I have a special spot in my heart for small business owners. Can we talk a little bit about ChatGPT and how that might assist small business owners? And let me paint a little broader picture. We've heard a lot about other tools that are perhaps out of favor, particularly with the U.S. government, that are very helpful for small businesses. But I don't know if small businesses are fully understanding the platform that you have and how they might use it for marketing, for data research, and ways to help their small business be successful.
There were all these moments as ChatGPT was beginning to take off where we would be like, oh, we may have like a hit on our hands. There's like, someone's using it for this, and that's, strangers talking about it. You see someone using it in a coffee shop. But one of the ones that really sticks out for me is pretty quickly after ChatGPT launched, like in the first 6 months, say, I was in an Uber, and the driver was making conversation. He's like, have you heard of this thing called ChatGPT? It's amazing. And I was like, yeah, what do you think about it? And he was using it to run basically his entire small business. He was like, he ran a laundromat, and he's like, I had all these problems, couldn't find good people to write my ads, couldn't get like legal documents reviewed, couldn't like answer customer support emails. And he was like a mega early adopter, but he was one of these people that was using AI to like make a small business work. And we talked about that story a lot at the time. But it's nice to reflect on it again now. We've now heard that at scale from a lot of people, but that was one of those moments early on where like, oh, this is maybe going to work.
And I'm out of time, but just to mark, this is more than just something that helps proofread emails, right? And you don't need to comment because I'm out of time, but I think we would all agree with that.
It is.
And look forward to seeing these applications move forward. Mr. Chairman, I yield my time.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank you to the panel for all of you being here today. I want to begin by talking about the importance of partnerships between the private sector and our national laboratories in maintaining the United States leadership in AI. Illinois is a proud home of two crown jewels of the national laboratories: Fermilab, America's premier particle physics and accelerator laboratory, and Argonne National Laboratory, home to the Aurora supercomputer that will accelerate breakthroughs in AI, cancer research, and fundamental physics. There is nothing more important than sustaining and amplifying investments in our nation's incredible network of national labs. Yet Donald Trump and Elon Musk, with the support of some Republicans in Congress, are plotting to take a chainsaw to the vital research initiatives being carried out across our country. This is a self-sabotaging attack, plain and simple. And if allowed to proceed, Trump and Musk will inflict lasting harm on our innovative capabilities and capacity that our enemies could only dream of achieving. Does anyone truly have confidence that had Doge been around decades ago, they would not have cut the project that created the internet as an example of wasteful, publicly funded research and development? So my question to any member of the panel is the following. Can you explain the importance of the national lab system to maintaining our research edge and discuss any partnerships you've established or are currently pursuing, especially those threatened by massive cuts to the national labs research?
We partner with the national labs, so maybe I could take a first cut of this. Also, Senator, I would love to get to visit a Fermi lab someday. That would be like
that was my next question.
That would be a real
You're
life
welcome.
highlight. That'd be very cool. There's many wonderful things that AI is going to do for the world, but the one that I am personally most excited about is the impact AI will have on scientific discovery. I believe that new scientific discovery is the most important input to the world getting better and people's quality of lives getting better over time. It is hard to overstate where we would be, where we are because of scientific advancement and where we would be if.
Herr Anwalt, ich würde gern mit dem Investieren anfangen, aber ich weiß noch nicht so genau, bei welcher Plattform ich das machen soll. Worauf muss ich denn achten? Das ist eine sehr gute Frage, aber ich glaube, ich habe da was für dich. eToro, mehr als 38 Millionen Nutzer vertrauen dieser Plattform. eToro legt großen Wert auf Transparenz und Sicherheit. Schau mal, hier kannst du alle rechtlichen Informationen klar.
Very deep and important partnership to us, and I expect that will really bear fruit.
Thank you. Anybody else on the panel?
Yeah, I think you highlight a very important issue. This country has 17 national labs administered by the Department of Energy and about 85 to 90 research universities. And together, they are the fabric of much of scientific discovery and have been since the Manhattan Project in World War II. We in the tech sector, we at Microsoft work with almost all of them. And there's a particular cycle of innovation that the United States has mastered. You have curiosity-driven research in these institutions, and then the advances move out of those institutions into startups and into larger companies. And what I always find interesting is I meet with officials around the world. They have studied this. They seek to emulate it. And I always worry that in the United States, we run the risk of taking it for granted. We should never take this for granted. It is the foundation for the country's technological leadership.
Very much so. Dr. Sue?
I just wanted to add to that, we are also very large supporters of the public-private partnerships with the national labs. I think the national labs have, in a way, always tried to look ahead of the curve, and that's a great place for us to invest. We think they're a key piece. We have partnered with all of the national labs as well, over the last decade, and that continues to be a place where I think there can be significant public-private partnership.
Thank you. Mr. Entrader?
I just think it would be really interesting to come to these AI factories and to walk through or travel through these institutions and identify all the different pieces of the science that leads back and was ultimately driven and founded on something that came out of those institutions, because it's amazing, actually.
Thank you. And would any of the remaining three of you would like to come to a lab in Illinois, either Fermi or Argonne? I will give you personal tours. All right, all four of you. It's done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this important hearing on winning the AI race. It's good to see our panelists here. One of the things that I like to underscore whenever I talk about this issue is we are not just discussing a race to create jobs, not just discussing a race to figure out how to eke out more growth from our economy, although that's important. Not just trying to identify how humans can flourish more, especially Americans, through application of AI solutions to our daily lives in various ways. But this is an issue of national and economic security. I want folks at home to get that. I know all our panelists are highly conversant and knowledgeable about that. In my discussions with you and many others, I've heard we need to work with like-minded partners and allies to win this race, and it's only going to be done collectively. I've heard here today from a number of you that this race is in part about getting market share, diffusion of our AI models and solutions into other countries. It is through that means, for me to perhaps elaborate on your thoughts, that we can see that our own values are advanced. These models, presumably, they'll be embedded with our values related to privacy and transparency and property rights and freedom of speech and religion. Not the values of the Chinese Communist Party on each of those various fronts. And then if we can establish digital trade rules, digital cross-border agreements on digital trade with these other countries, we could conceivably erect higher barriers to entry for models that don't come embedded with our standards, models of say, the Chinese Communist Party has given sanction to. So there's a geopolitical national security overlay to this entire conversation, which is why I think the chairman's emphasis on not overly constraining innovation or deployment is very important. But it's also why I think it's important that we be thinking about how to work with other countries in their standards development. And so that's where I want to begin asking questions. I'll start with Mr. Smith. If the United States doesn't adopt some standards through some entity, whether it's NIST or another federal entity or federally sanctioned entity, then won't other nations go ahead and feel the need to adopt their standards without any consultation with the United States?
I think it's a really important point you make, and it is the lesson from the evolution of privacy law. The United States didn't adopt a national privacy law. Europe did twice, and most American companies of any size today apply across the United States work that complies with European privacy law. It's just more efficient. So I think the United States needs to be in the game internationally to influence the rest of the world. And you cannot be in the game if you do nothing. You must do something. So you take Senator Cruz's idea, a lightweight approach,
yes,
and then you build support around it.
So just to unpack that, and I'll stick with Mr. Smith with apologies to everyone else because my time's limited. Would it be easier to shape the standards of other large economy countries that share most of our values if we already have a set of standards adopted?
Generally, yes. I think we always have to be careful because if you go too soon, you go before the standards have really come together. But you've got to have some kind of model that you can show the rest of the world and win support for.
And then presumably standards could be harmonized, right? They're not set in and chiseled onto a tablet, so to speak, right?
No, that's indispensable. I mean, if our technology is going to go around the world, we need a set of laws or regulations that, in effect, create that basis for reciprocity and interoperability.
Okay. I only have 25 seconds left. Are there any violent objections to Mr. Smith's position? Because that seems eminently reasonable to me. Seems consistent with a light touch approach, but it also shows a certain sense of urgency that the United States needs to act. The last thing I'll say in my remaining 10 seconds is that I am planning on introducing legislation today called the AI Public Awareness and Education Campaign Act with several of my colleagues. And our aim is to have a whole-of-government approach to foster greater awareness of AI literacy and grow STEM opportunities to create the next generation of our workforce, and looking forward to moving that forward. So it will be available for public review, critique, even accolades. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Senator Blunt Rochester.
Thank you, Chairman Cruz, and thank you so much to the witnesses. This is such an important hearing. 5 minutes will not suffice for me. I'll be submitting some questions for the record. I noticed that for Mr. Altman and Mr. Smith, when the question of paint me a picture of the future came up, you actually leaned up in your chair. There was a level of excitement, and that's how I am about the future. When I came into the House of Representatives in 2017, I started a future of work bipartisan caucus because I had a concern that number one, there were certain groups of people that were going to be left behind, but there also as a country that we could be left behind. And I had an event where we had everyone walk into the room and use a word cloud and tell me what you think of when you hear the future of work. The biggest word coming in the door was fear. The biggest word walking out the door was opportunity. And so to me, this conversation is so vital to think about the opportunities, but also making sure that we are watching out for ethics, watching out for scams, watching out for that technology does not take over the human. And so I am just grateful for the conversation. And Mr. Altman, I listened to an interview about that you gave with Lester Holt maybe a year or so ago, and you talked in that interview about how OpenAI, it wasn't initially even about making a product. It wasn't about the money. And so I know you are incorporated in Delaware, and I understand you've been working with our Attorney General during the previously proposed legislation to transition to a for-profit, not legislation, but to transition to for-profit. And this Monday, OpenAI decided to apply to become a public benefit corporation instead, and to have the PBC govern your nonprofit arm. What went into this decision, and what considerations influenced the timing of the organizational change?
So we never, thank you for the question, Senator, and the chance to explain this. It's a complicated thing that I think has gotten misrepresented. So this is a wonderful forum to talk about it. We never planned to have the nonprofit convert into anything. The nonprofit was always going to be the nonprofit. And we also planned for a PBC from the very beginning. There were a bunch of other considerations about, is it the PBC board that would control the nonprofit somehow, or how our capital structure was going to work, that there was a lot of speculation on, most of it inaccurate in the press. But our plan has always been to have a robust nonprofit. We hope our nonprofit will be one of the best, maybe someday the best resourced nonprofit in the world, and a PBC with the same mission that would make it possible for us to raise the capital needed to deliver these tools and services at the quality level and availability level that people want to use them at, but still stick to our mission, which we've been proud over the last almost decade of our progress towards. So we had a lot of productive conversations with a lot of stakeholders and a lot of lawyers and a lot of regulators about the best way to do this. It took longer than we thought it was going to. I would have guessed that we would have been talking about this last year, but now we have a proposal that people seem pretty excited about, and we're trying to now advance.
And Dr. Su, your company primarily operates in the physical hardware portion of the AI stack. I have a bill with Senators Cantwell and Blackburn called the Promoting Resilient Supply Chains Act, which authorizes the Department of Commerce to strengthen American supply chains for critical industries and emerging technologies. Dr. Su and others, semiconductor and chips manufacturing is critical to advancing the advancement of AI. But we're facing these global supply chain constraints. What specific policies, and I know you mentioned policies as well for supply chains, would we need to adopt to help American companies overcome the supply chain issues and compete in international with our rivals?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. There's no question the semiconductor supply chain and overall supply chains are really critical for us to win the AI race. I think from a semiconductor standpoint, the efforts that have been made to move manufacturing back to the United States have been positive. I think they are a start. There's a lot more that we can do. And one of the most important aspects of it is really to think about it end to end. There's so many steps to go from beginning to end in a semiconductor supply chain, including advanced wafers, including including packaging, including the back ends and system test. All of those avenues need to have a footprint in the United States. And then we have many allies around the world, which are, very excellent partners as part of the global resiliency in the supply chain. And we would like to see, those partnerships continue to flourish.
And last question, if I can, Mr. Smith, how do you see the interdependence between the AI stack sections creating either vulnerabilities or opportunities in the AI supply chain?
I think they create more opportunities than vulnerabilities because it enables companies to do what they do best, and that we can work together. And the world today has an integrated supply chain for anything that you buy. We just don't think about it when we go to the grocery store. I think one of the strengths of the tech sector is that we have, I'll call it a string of pearls, great companies in every layer of the stack. And we're going to need, frankly, more great companies, especially at the applications layer, and that it is how we work together.
Thank you so much. I am out of time, but we will be following up with questions for the record as well as individually. Thank you, and I yield back.
Mr. Moran.
Chairman Lummis, thank you very much. Mr. Smith mentioned data privacy, which has been a topic of mine for a long time, and we've been unsuccessful in legislation being adopted. But I still have the goal of making certain that consumers have control over their own data. And I was going to ask you, Mr. Altman, how can we provide consumers with more control over how their data is used by AI companies while preserving the utility of the AI system? So how do you get more privacy and still get the benefits?
So there's all of the standard privacy controls that companies like ours and others build and should, but there's a new area that I'd love to flag for your consideration, which is people are sharing more information with AI systems than I think they have with previous generations of technology. And the maximum utility of these systems happens when the model can get very personalized to you. So this is a wonderful thing, and we should find a way to enable it. But the fact that these AI systems will get to know you over the course of your life so well, I think presents a new challenge and level of importance for how we think about privacy in the world of AI. How we're going to think about guaranteeing people privacy when they talk to an AI system about whatever's happening in their lives, how we make sure that when one system connects to another, it shares the appropriate information and doesn't share other information, and that users are in control of that. I believe this will become one of the most important issues with AI in the coming years as people come to integrate this technology more into their lives, and I think it is a great area for you all to think about and take quite seriously.
We do. We just don't have any success in finding the conclusions, but thank you for the encouragement. I chair a Commerce, Justice, Science Appropriations Subcommittee that funds the Department of Justice, and it plays a significant role in cybersecurity of our country. I just came from a budget hearing with the FBI Director, Dr. Patel, in which we covered cybersecurity threats. AI can I think this is true, AI can be used on both sides of a cybersecurity attack, and it can be used to automate phishing, malware creation, but machine learning can also increase our ability to detect and respond to cyber threats. What should Congress think about allocation of federal resources for cybersecurity, and what should we consider when it comes to AI?
Well, I would say that AI, as you said, is both an offensive weapon and a defensive shield when it comes to cybersecurity. And as with many other things, the front line of this the last few years has been in Ukraine, because Russia has such a sophisticated cyber attack capability. And what we've found is a company that's been involved in supporting Ukraine since literally the moment that war began, is that AI is a game changer. We have intercepted attacks against Ukraine faster than a human could detect them, and we blocked those attacks from taking place. So you deploy AI into, call it, the front line of the products themselves. We have to recognize that it's ultimately the people who defend not just countries, but companies and governments, the chief information security officers or the CISOs. So we've created what's called a cybersecurity co-pilot that basically automates for those individuals much of the workflow that takes their time so that they can be more effective and efficient. When it comes to federal appropriations, I think that, to put it simply, the United States government must remain at the forefront of having for itself the cybersecurity capabilities that it needs to defend the government. And every day, I mean, we are in government agencies today during this hearing, pushing Chinese out of agencies and the like. And this will happen every day of every year from now to probably eternity. So we must keep the U.S. government well funded in this space. And I think we also need our intelligence agencies, and especially the NSA, to be well funded so they can remain at the forefront when it comes to global leadership in this field.
Thank you for your observations and encouragement. My final question, rural areas, a place I come from, often lack high-speed broadband. And since many AI tools rely upon connectivity, I'm concerned that many parts of the country and many parts of Kansas may not be able to access the benefits that AI will bring to business, schools, healthcare, etc. What can the federal government do to be supportive of development and availability of on-device or low broadband width AI systems that do not rely on constant connectivity?
I'm generally pretty excited about what AI will do here because you can offload so much of the processing to the cloud and then ship a relatively small amount of data. If you think about, ChatGPT as text comes in, there's like a brain that thinks about it really hard and some text comes back. We can support people in low connectivity areas quite well with the same quality of service. Separately to that, I think getting great connectivity everywhere is important, but in the specific area of AI, I think we can actually address that gap quite well.
That's good to know. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lujan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first, I want to begin by recognizing and thanking Mr. Altman and Mr. Smith for your organization's ongoing involvement in the NIST U.S. AI Safety Institute, as well as Dr. Su and Mr. Altman for your ongoing partnerships with our national laboratories. Now, Dr. Su and Mr. Altman, can you explain how your partnership with the national labs support scientific research? You explained this to a question that was asked by Senator Duckworth as well, but if you could just touch on that quickly.
Our latest models, like O3, are good at scientific reasoning, and so scientists are able to use these to help them review literature, come up with new ideas, propose experiments, analyze data in a way that the previous generations of models just couldn't. We've had the national labs and other scientists spend time with previous models, and they say, "Oh, this is kind of cool. It's interesting. It's not transforming things." These new models are the first time we're hearing from scientists at the national labs and elsewhere that this is a legitimate game changer to their research output.
Appreciate that, Dr. Su.
Yeah, I would add the same. I think our partnerships with the national labs have seen just tremendous opportunity. We have large-scale compute across the national labs and the ability to really develop new applications that take advantage of, let's call it traditional high-performance computing together with the new AI model capability that we just talked about is, I think, a great opportunity to substantially move forward the ability for scientific discovery.
To both of you, again, can you explain why federal investment in foundational research and standards bodies are crucial to your companies?
I think standards can help increase the rate of innovation, but it's important that the industry figure out what they should be first. I think a bad standard can really set things back, and we've seen many examples of that in history. I do think there's a new protocol to discover here at the level of importance of HTTP. This is just one example. There's many other things too. I believe the industry will figure that out through some fits and starts, and then I think officially adopting that can be helpful.
Dr. Su.
I believe public-private partnerships really enable us to think, let's call it ahead of the curve. So there are lots of things that we do in industry, and we do them very, very well. However, the beauty of the national labs and federal research is it does allow, let's call it a bit more blue sky research. And I think that's a very positive add. So I think the key is how we can make sure that one federal dollar goes much, much further than that with a private investment on top of that.
Yesterday, I reintroduced a piece of legislation called the Test AI Act, which has bipartisan support, which would simply improve the federal government's capacity to test and evaluate in this area as well. So very much appreciate both your responses. But this is just one of many steps I would argue that is needed to ensure that the United States stays ahead. Now, despite strong support across the country, including from industry leaders here today, President Trump's annihilating budgets for basic research, and there are questions abound by so many. I'll argue that this will destroy our nation's competitive advantage. I simply just call on all my colleagues that we look at the investments to the National Science Foundation, National Institute.
Mit Phenom lassen sich Ausgaben in Ersparnisse umwandeln. Einfach ein Geschäftskonto eröffnen und bis zu 3% Cashback.
More hearings celebrating what we're celebrating today. Now, beyond your partnership with the federal government, I would like to know more about how you partner with local communities when building out centers. Data centers put a strain on energy and water resources. However, unlike other businesses, they do not introduce many long-term jobs and economic benefits necessarily. So, Mr. Smith, how many engineers do you have dedicated to model or hardware optimization to reduce energy use? And when you build a center, what initiatives do you have in place to reduce water use?
I don't know off the top of my head the number of engineers working on optimization, but be happy to track down and answer and get it to you. Water use is a huge priority, especially in data centers, for example, in the southwestern United States and other countries around the world where water is in short supply. If you look at our data centers today, they run on liquid cooling. It's a closed loop system. The liquid is a combination of, frankly, water and other chemicals, but basically, once it starts running, almost all of the water is recycled. So the amount of water that we consume is typically far, far smaller than what most people would estimate. We also have a commitment to water replenishment. Now, our goal is to be water positive, meaning that we're providing more water to the community than we are consuming. So, for example, across the United States today, we have more than 90 water replenishment projects, including one that focuses on the San Juan River in your state of New Mexico, which focuses on water security for the river. So I think it's a good example of how we can play a responsible role in addressing an issue that is of growing importance.
Appreciate it. Mr. Trader? Same question.
Yeah, I can't answer the question of how many engineers we have focused on it, but I will say that the ability to extract more computational power out of a given megawatt is of paramount importance to my company, to all of us in this room. And we spend an enormous amount of time integrating the most bleeding edge technology, which is a step function more efficient in terms of its computational output than the legacy technology has historically done. So moving to liquid cooling has just been an incredible improvement in efficiency, and ultimately we face this problem from within a given data center, within a given power envelope. How much can we move the computational resources forward? And that's really an important part of what we do.
I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, I have other questions I'll submit to the record. Mr. Moran did ask one question. Mr. Altman, you responded to it. But can you all just answer yes or no? Is it important to ensure that in order for AI to reach its full promise, that people across the country should be able to connect to fast, affordable internet? Dr. Sue?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate it. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Lummis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for coming today. I really have been amazed at the outstanding progress that continues to be made in this field, and I'm already seeing people in Wyoming that are using ChatGPT or Claude to improve their businesses, whether it's healthcare or mining or oil and gas or education, ranching even. I'm just really excited about what this opportunity brings to America. Now, as I see it, the world has presented us with two paths. On one hand, the EU has chosen to regulate first and ask questions later. The GDPR is already limiting European access to the most capable AI models. On the other hand, China appears to be fast-tracking AI development, standing up large amounts of energy very quickly in an attempt to outcompete America. So I'd like to ask a few questions about how we can make sure we get the full benefit of this technology and accelerate its development. So first question, over the past year, we've seen many states, including California and Texas, consider their own AI frameworks, each one significantly burdensome in their own right. At the same time, our lead against China is shrinking to about only 6 months. So first of all, Mr. Altman, could you please sketch out what the world could look like if the U.S. were to have a patchwork regulatory framework and how that could impact our competitiveness?
I think it would be quite bad. I think it's very difficult to imagine us figuring out how to comply with 50 different sets of regulation. And in many of these states, there have been, dozens of different bills proposed that I understand several of which could be passed. That will slow us down at a time where I don't think it's in anyone's interest for us to slow down. One federal framework that is light touch, that we can understand and that lets us, move with the speed that this moment calls for seems important and fine. But the sort of every state takes a different approach here, I think would be quite burdensome and significantly impair our ability to do what we need to do, and hopefully you all want us to do too.
Does anyone disagree with Mr. Altman's assessment of a patchwork? Thank you. I have some questions about the infrastructure that is going to be necessary to lead and compete in AI. So my next questions are for our infrastructure providers, Mr. Smith and Mr. Is it Intrader or
That's correct.
Intrader? Thank you. Could you elaborate on how current permitting processes have impacted your ability to rapidly deploy AI infrastructure? The more specific you can be, the better.
So, quick comment on the patchwork, and then I'll dive in here, is the investment that we're making on the infrastructure side is enormous. And the idea that you can make an investment that could then become trapped in a jurisdiction that has a particular type of regulation that would not allow you to make full use of it is really very, very suboptimal, and makes the decision making around infrastructure challenging. As far as the permitting goes, whenever this topic comes up, the discussion around permitting is excruciating, and it's excruciating from the ability to quickly build and to build large. And I think that is kind of from the data center forward, without even beginning the discussion from the data center back through the energy infrastructure that is necessary to be able to power these large investments at the scale that make them of relevance to moving artificial intelligence forward. I'm happy to spend more time kind of digging into more details, but probably do that directly.
Okay, and I'll look forward to that conversation, because I'm worried about Wyoming's very clean natural gas being something your industry's concerned about, because President Trump likes natural gas, but President Biden didn't. And if you build huge data centers and another president comes along who's anti-natural gas, that's a concern for you as you're deciding how to deploy capital. Mr. Smith, do you agree?
Generally, I do. I mean, I would say we need consistency across administrations in this country. We need to find more opportunities for bipartisan agreement. And I'll just highlight that in Cheyenne, where we've long had a data center complex, we do have backup generators that, run on natural gas. So, there are a variety of ways for us to put, different energy supplies to good use.
Are you exploring small modular nuclear?
Yes, including with people in Wyoming.
Thank you. Mr. Altman, I'm pleased to hear you are releasing an open, oh, my time's up, excuse me. It goes so fast.
I'd love to talk to you about it another time. We're
Okay.
very excited about it too.
Yeah, thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Chairman Cruz. I saw him ready to push the button, and anyway, time does go by very fast. Thank you for having this hearing. I really believe in the promise of AI. It's so exciting, and we have to ask the right questions in order to promote its growth on one hand, and how it can explore and create these new possibilities and pathways, and also how do we protect ourselves from bad actors or outcomes as best as we can know at the time. And Mr. Altman, thank you for spending some time with me yesterday. I look forward to continuing to work with you on this. So I want to start a little bit today at DeepSeek and adversarial AI, because in February I introduced bipartisan legislation with Senator Husted to prohibit the using DeepSeek on government devices. And earlier this week, Senator Cassidy and I introduced a bill that would expand those prohibitions to include federal contractors. So, Mr. Smith, what should our approach be to AI models that are developed in or by adversarial countries like the PRC? Should we be concerned about our adversaries co-opting AI to promote a particular ideology, collect sensitive U.S. data, and how are you combating this threat?
Well, I think you can take the DeepSeek example, and it illustrates it well. And I think it's just worth thinking about the fact that DeepSeek produced two things. They have a model that is an open source model, and they have an application, the DeepSeek app. At Microsoft, we don't allow our employees to use the DeepSeek app. We did not put the DeepSeek app in our app store because of the kinds of concerns that you mentioned, namely data going back to China and the app creating the kinds of content that I think people would say were associated with Chinese propaganda. At the same time, because the model itself is an open source model, it was possible for us to go in it, analyze it, and change the code in the model, which we and other people have the permission to do, to remove the harmful side effects. And so I think we have to always think about the different aspects of the technology. I will say put security first, and then go forward from there.
Thank you. I think we all know that data is the real power in our current world. He or she or whomever owns the data really can control a lot of what we do. But I want to move on and speak with you, Mr. Altman, about AI and anti-Semitism a little bit, because earlier this year, ADL released a report showing that several major generative AI models have perpetuated dangerous anti-Semitic stereotypes and, sadly, conspiracy theories. So, Mr. Altman, what steps is industry taking to ensure that AI models don't perpetuate anti-Semitism? Will you consider collaborating with civil society to create kind of a standard benchmark for AI related to anti-Semitism, use it as a form of evaluation, and then maybe we could use those for other forms of hate as well?
We of course, we do collaborate with civil society on this topic, and we are excited to continue to do so. We want our users to have freedom to use models in the way they want, but we also don't want them to be damaging to sort of the fabric of society or particular groups. There will always be some debate, and the question of free speech in the context of AI is novel, and I think it's different than what we faced before. We really do view these as tools for users one-on-one, but of course we're not here to make horrible anti-Semitic products.
Thank you. I want to move on to Senator Lujan talked about data center energy use, water use, something we're all really concerned about. I want to put on top of that a little bit about data center security, add that to the mix. So last Congress, I actually got a bill passed into law, my bipartisan Federal Data Center Enhancement Act. It establishes cybersecurity and resiliency standards for federal data centers. And so to Mr. Smith, or I'm sorry, Dr. Su, thank you. Dr. Su, I want to ask you a little bit about hardware. Are there ways the hardware, like the chips AMD designs, new chips that we're hoping to think about? I know my career as a software developer, we just know things have gotten smarter, faster, and the cooler they can be, the better we can compute. So how can we make our chips cooler? How can we make our data centers, our computing power more secure? And I know interoperability is sometimes a factor, but can you talk about this a little bit?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Senator. I think all of those things are extremely important, as you said. So in our part of the energy efficiency, power constraints that we have from a chip standpoint, our job is to continue to make our chips more and more efficient every year. We've seen, 30 times improvement over the last few years, and we will continue to focus, in that area. And then to your comments about, security and ensuring that our chips are secure and people are not somehow, breaking into them. Those are also very high priorities in our overall development cycle for future generation chips as well.
Well, thank you. I look forward to working with all of you again on these important issues. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the witnesses for the testimony today. I appreciate the chairman calling this hearing. And I agree with Senator Cruz's opening statement about this is a matter of national economic and national security in terms of our race, however you want to call it, competition with China. So I know this topic has been pressed, but I want to dig down a little bit deeper. Do you agree with that, all of you? I'm just going to ask some quick questions. That this is a huge issue of national security, economic security relative to China, and we as America need to win in that regard. Very important. Everybody nodding their head. And then I know that it had been touched, but is the consensus among the witnesses that we are ahead right now, but is kind of tentative lead? What would be, very quickly, we'll start with you, Mr. Altman. What's your assessment on that? I know we've already talked about it. I just want to set the context for some of the questions.
Yeah, I believe we are leading the world right now. I believe we'll continue to do so. We want to make AI in the United States, and we want the whole world to get to benefit from that. I think that is the strongest thing for the United States. I think it's also the right thing to do for all the people of the world. And I really appreciate you all being with us here today, because I think we'll need your help, and everything you're saying, or almost everything you're saying, sounds great.
So as I ask this question, I'll ask if you guys think we're ahead, but then the key things when you say we need your help, what would, very succinctly, sometimes we're not so smart up here, what would the key things be that you would need from the U.S. government to help us maintain that lead and dominate this space, which is what I think we need to do? Mr. Altman, again, to you real quick on that.
We've talked a little bit about infrastructure, but I think we cannot overstate how important that is, and the ability to have that whole supply chain, or as much of it as possible, in the United States. The previous technological revolutions have also been about infrastructure and the supply chain, but AI is different in terms of the magnitude of resources that we need. So projects like Stargate that we're doing in the US, things like bringing chip manufacturing, certainly chip design to the US, permitting power quickly, like these are critical. If we don't get this right, I don't think anything else we do can help. On the model creation side, we've talked about the need for certainty on our ability to train and to have fair footing with the rest of the world to make sure we can remain competitive. The ability to offer products under a reasonable, fair, light touch regulatory framework where we can go win in the market, because the products will be so key to the sort of feedback loops and making them better and better, and the ability to deploy them quickly and win at the product level in addition to the model and infrastructure and data the area is really quite important. The ability to bring the most talented people in the world here, the most talented researchers. We have a ton in the United States. There's more out in the world. We should try to get them all here, improving models here. I think those are some of the specifics.
Good. That's very helpful. Let me ask Mr. Smith, two other ones that I want to touch on. I agree fully with Senator Lummis. I'm sure Senator Cruz has the same view. One of our comparative advantages over China, in my view, has to be energy. All of the above energy. Hopefully you've seen in Alaska, we have a very large-scale LNG project that I think we're going to get off the ground here. We've been working on for a long time. We will have 100 years supply of natural gas. So we want you guys all to come up to Alaska with your data centers. We got cold weather. We got a lot of cold weather. We got gas. We got land. We got water. We got it all.
That's very compelling.
So yeah, come on up. when this project's done, 100-year gas supply, a little colder than Texas. So two questions that relate to our comparative advantage. Mr. Smith, and then any others who want to jump in. Energy, do we think that is? I think it is. And then second, it's, I think, somewhat of a disadvantage. It frustrates me. Maybe you guys don't see this. We've had American finance companies, venture capital firms, banks, others that remarkably, all the opportunities we have in America are helping fund some of these projects in China. I've been a real staunch opponent of Americans who have opportunities to invest in other places, investing in Chinese AI, Chinese quantum, because we all know they're going to use that to help make their military more lethal. I mean, that's what they do. I was reading recently about this Benchmark Capital. I don't know these guys, but they evidently did a $75 million round for some an AI company in China. Is that another problem as well, Mr. Smith? Advantage Energy problem, American companies financing our competition.
I would connect three things: energy, people, and access to capital. The U.S. has huge resources in energy, but never underestimate the ability of China to build a lot of electrical power plants, maybe more and faster than any other country. So we are better off going into that with the mindset that we have to keep up and not take anything for granted. But then I would say the number one comparative advantage of the United States throughout the 50 years that have defined digital technology has been bringing the world's best people to our country and giving them access to venture capital. And we should continue to burnish both of those. And I think you're right to ask, where else is venture capital going? I'll just say this: if we can keep bringing the best people to the United States, and if we can keep educating the best people in the United States, I believe the money will be here to enable them to succeed. But let's make sure we're continuing to bring the best people in the world and giving them the opportunity to build great companies here in the United States.
And American venture capital funds funding Chinese AI, is that in our national interest?
I think there's a really good question about whether it is, and I recognize that you all are quite rightly focused on that. I'll just keep saying, bring the people here, they will have access to the money, and we will outcompete the world.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Markey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much. I'd like to talk about the environmental impact of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can help us combat climate change by improving weather forecasts and enabling us to better predict power supply and demand. But designing and training and deploying AI models also poses real risks for our environment. The massive data centers that are critical for AI development require substantial amounts of electricity, putting stress on the grid and potentially raising costs for consumers. These data centers also generate significant heat. Cooling them requires huge volumes of water, often in regions already facing droughts because of climate change. And some data centers have on-site backup diesel generators, which can cause respiratory and cardiovascular issues and can increase the risk of cancer for the surrounding community. The truth is, we know too little about both the environmental costs and benefits of AI. Mr. Smith, do you agree that it would be helpful for the government to conduct a comprehensive study on environmental impact of artificial intelligence?
Generally, yes. One study was just completed last December, and I think it's worth updating periodically.
Do you think it would be helpful for the government to convene stakeholders, including from industry and academia, to help better measure AI's environmental impact?
I think, as well as many other things that need to be measured, yes, I think there's a role to be played.
Mr. Altman, do you agree that the federal government should help with studying and measuring the environmental impact of AI?
I think studying and measuring is usually a good thing. I do think that the conversation about the environmental impact of AI and the relative challenges and benefits has gotten somewhat out of whack. I am hopeful that AI, we've been trying to address.
Unser Frühlingsangebot. Premium-Gleitsichtbrille und Komfort-Gleitsichtbrille für nur 199 €.
Watt facility, and we've got another
My question is, should the federal government be on an ongoing basis studying the impact of AI?
Sure, and I think you should use AI to help.
Well, look, so that's why this Congress introduced the Artificial Intelligence Environmental Impact Act to study both the positive and negative consequences of AI. As the technology continues to develop, as models become more efficient, and as we build out the infrastructure, we need to do it. Yes, AI might find a cure for cancer. It may. But AI also could help to contribute to a climate disaster. That's also equally true. Okay? So we need to just keep both of those things right on the table, especially as the Trump administration is ignoring the fact that last year, 94% of all new installed electrical generation capacity in the United States was wind, solar, and battery. And Trump has said he's going to destroy all incentives for continuation of that. Okay? That's something you have to weigh in on. Make sure he does not do that. So I look forward to working with you on that. Now I want to turn to AI's impact on disadvantaged communities. After all, we're not just talking about using artificial intelligence to write emails or plan grocery lists. We're talking about technology used to calculate a family's mortgage, screen an individual's job application, and determine a senior's medical care. When used in these situations, it is absolutely essential that AI-powered algorithms are free from bias and discrimination. So let's start with a simple question. Mr. Smith, can algorithms be biased and cause discrimination?
They can, which is why we test to avoid that outcome.
Okay, same question, Mr. Altman. Can algorithms be biased and cause discrimination?
Of course. Of course.
Of course. Mr. Altman, does OpenAI work to guard against such bias and discrimination in Chat GPT?
Of course.
Of course. So I'm glad to hear that, because you recently stated that the government should not implement privacy regulations on AI, but instead, quote, respond very quickly as the problems emerge. And I am very deeply worried about that approach. We don't need to wait and see if poorly tested and trained algorithms will harm marginalized communities. Artificial intelligence is already supercharging the bias and discrimination prevalent in our society. Biased and discriminatory algorithms mean Black and brown families are less likely to obtain a mortgage. It means people with disabilities are less likely to be recommended for a job opening. And it means women are less likely to receive scholarships for higher education. These are real harms that are happening right now. It is Congress's job to address these existing problems that come with the rapid development and deployment of AI. And it's why I'm the proud author of the AI Civil Rights Act, which would ensure that companies review and eliminate bias and discrimination in their algorithms before developing and deploying them. It has to happen simultaneously. And it will hold companies accountable when their algorithms cause harms against marginalized population. I will be fighting to ensure AI does not stand for accelerating inequality in our nation. All of the protections we have in the real world should be moved to the virtual world, because the same discriminations against women, Black, brown, communities with disabilities, LGBTQ community are going to move online. And we have to build in the protections against that bias right up front, because otherwise those same discriminatory practices will just migrate immediately, and the responsibility of the industry will be to work with Congress to make sure we put those protections on the books. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses. Thank you for being here. It's an incredibly important topic, and we appreciate your expertise. As we're looking at making sure that the United States is the world leader in AI, certainly we've been talking about supply chains and infrastructure and all of those aspects, but one area that I want to particularly focus on is workforce and people, to make sure that we have the talent there. That's why I authored the AI Scholarship for Service Act and the AI Training Act. Both of those were signed into law in 2022. Earlier this year, I introduced my AI and critical technology workforce Framework Act to continue the effort along those lines, and love to work with each of you as we look at other legislation necessary to make sure we've got the workforce trained to take advantage of this amazing technology. I do want to do a shout out to the University of Michigan that actually became the first university in the world to provide generative AI tools for their entire student body to prepare them for the workforce of tomorrow. So I want to talk a little bit about the workforce, but Mr. Altman, when we met last year in my office and had a great conversation, you said that upwards of 70% of jobs could be eliminated by AI, and you acknowledged the possible social disruption of this. If that's happening, we have to prepare for it. We're not going to stand in the way of the incredible opportunities here, but if this is indeed going to occur, we've got to be thinking pretty deeply about how that will be managed and make sure that everybody can benefit from AI, not just a select few that benefit. So talk to me about how you believe leaders in your industry can help mitigate job losses or deal with what could, as you described it last year, major social disruption.
The thing that I think is different this time than previous technological revolutions is the potential speed. Technological revolutions have impacted jobs and the economy for a long time. Mm-hmm. Some jobs go away, some new jobs get created. Many jobs just get more efficient, and people are able to do more and earn more money and create more, and that's great. Over some period of time, society can adapt to a huge amount of job change, and you can look at the last couple of centuries and see how much that's happened. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows exactly how fast this is going to go, but it feels like it could be pretty fast. The most important thing, or one of the most important things I think we can do, is to put tools in the hands of people early. We have a principle that we call iterative deployment. We want people to be getting used to this technology as it's developed. We've been doing this now for almost 5 years since our first product launch. As society and this technology co-evolve, putting great, capable tools in the hands of a lot of people and letting them figure out the new things that they're going to do and create for each other and come up with, and provide sort of value back to the world on top of this new building block we have and the sort of scaffolding of society. That is, I think, the best thing we can do as OpenAI and as our industry to be sort of help smooth this transition.
The idea we want to get to the point where AI isn't displacing work, but actually enhancing work, that people are more productive and doing things that we probably can't even imagine what people will do. If we look 100 years ago, we have jobs that no one dreamed
can't imagine,
occur.
and I don't think we can imagine the jobs on the other side of this. But even if you look today at what's happening with programming, which I'll pick because it's sort of my background and near and dear to my heart, what it means to be a programmer and an effective programmer in May of 2025 is very different than what it meant last time I was here in May of 2023. These tools have really changed what a programmer is capable of, the amount of code and software that the world is going to get. And it's not like people don't hire software engineers anymore.
Right.
They work in a different way and they're way more productive.
Right. Dr. Su, we certainly talk a lot about open source AI, but most of the conversation has been about software. However, making technology open and able to work together matters at every level, as you know, from chips that power the devices to the servers that are running behind the scenes. So a question for you is, what are the benefits of open standards and system interoperability at the hardware level, not the software level? And what are the implications for innovation, national security, as well as resilience in the supply chain?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Senator. I think there are an incredible number of advantages to having an open ecosystem at the hardware and the software and the application level. The idea is, there's no one organization or one group that has all the good ideas. And so enabling the ecosystem to work together so that you can choose the best solution at every level, and then also optimization across a broad set of constituents is a good thing. I think it's also a single ecosystem. So we continue to be very forward thinking in open standards as well as open ecosystems.
So your model is an open model. I understand NVIDIA is a closed model. What are the advantages, disadvantages? Which should we be thinking about?
I think the major advantage in an open model, and that is something that we very much support, is the idea that we can have innovation come from many different parties. And, whether that is hardware innovation, so on the different chips, or that is system innovation on putting all of these things together. And, our goal is to make sure that we always have the best of the best. And there are many different ways, many different parties that can contribute to that. And that's why we are very forward-leaning in terms of open ecosystems.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Fetterman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, hello. Mr. Smith, I'm a big supporter of energy. For me, energy security is national security. And of course, renewables about that, but of course other things as well too, fossil. But also that also includes nuclear. Of course, nuclear is important. And now then there's that kind of energy transition. My focus is also that I want to make sure that ratepayers in Pennsylvania really aren't hit too hard throughout all of this. Now, the Washington Post reported that increasing electricity demand for the data centers is going to raise up residential power bills perhaps as much by 20%. Now, to me, that's really a concern for me and certainly for Pennsylvania families. Now, the data center, has important jobs during construction and doing those things, and that's a great thing, of course. But they're not, I guess, long term. But the rate, those rates might last longer for that. And now I've been tracking the plan to reopen TMI. I mean, my own personal story is I had to grab my hamster and evacuate, during the meltdown in 1979. You might assume that I was anti-nuclear, and that is not. I actually am very supportive of nuclear because that's an important part of the stack. If you really want to have and address climate change, you can't turn your back on nuclear, in my opinion. But I know that's to power Microsoft's data center. So now, and I really appreciate that. But if I'm saying now, if we're able to commit that the power purchase agreement, it's not going to raise electricity for Pennsylvania families.
No, I think you raise a critical point. We have two principles that we follow when we're constructing these data centers. Number one, we will invest to bring onto the grid an amount of electricity that equals the amount of electricity that we will use so that we're not tapping a constricted supply. Number two, we will manage all of this in a way that ensures that our activity does not raise the price of electricity to the community. And so I was describing earlier how if there's improvements that need to be made to the grid, as there often are, we'll go to the Utility Commission. We will propose a change in the rate that we are charged so that we can pay for that improvement. I just think it's a fact of life because I think you highlight something critical. There's a lot of jobs when the construction takes place. There are jobs afterwards, but they are not as many. One will wear out the welcome quickly if we tax, in effect, the neighborhood by asking everyone to pay more for their electricity because we have arrived. We get it. We know we have to be a good and responsible member of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Well, now, one of the perks of being a senator is that, for me anyway, I get an opportunity to meet people that have much more impressive kinds of jobs or careers that I've led. And now, Mr. Altman, now I'm going to count this as a highlight recently. I know the work that you've done, you're really one of the people that are moving AI. And now it's an opportunity. I was excited to meet you. And now people ask me, it's like, if you're going to talk about AI, and now I get to ask you, like the expert, some people are worried about AI or whatever. And I'm like, what about the singularity? So, the people like that, if you would address that, please.
Thank you, Senator, for the kind words and for normalizing hoodies in more spaces. I'd love to see that. I am incredibly excited about the rate of progress, but I also am cautious and I would say, I don't know. I feel small next to it or something. I think this is beyond something that we all fully yet understand where it's going to go. This is, I believe, among the biggest, maybe it'll turn out to be the biggest technological revolutions humanity will have ever produced. And I feel privileged to be here. I feel curious and interested in what's going to happen. But I do think things are going to change quite substantially. I think humans have a wonderful ability to adapt, and things that seem amazing will become the new normal very quickly. We will figure out how to use these tools to just do things we could never do before. And I think it will be quite extraordinary. But these are going to be tools that are capable of things that we can't quite wrap our heads around. And some people call that, as these tools start helping us to create next future iterations, some people call that the singularity, some people call that the takeoff, whatever it is, it feels like a sort of new era of human history. And I think it's tremendously exciting that we get to live through that and we can make it a wonderful thing. But we've got to approach it with humility and some caution.
No, I mean, I just for me, it's been. I get a chance to ask questions to a lot of Edisons, as well too. Like the kinds of things that you're all collectively involved are going to transform our society, and people will look back 50, 60 years ago and see what's happened. So for me, over to the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fetterman. Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you. Good thought, Senator Fetterman. Thank you. So you guys have been sitting here so long that the Pope has been chosen.
Wow.
Well, we don't know who.
Congratulations,
The
Amy.
white smoke has come up.
Congratulations.
What? Oh, stop. You're welcome. Probably wouldn't work. But in any case, it was, I left for some other things, came back because I had one more question that I wanted to ask, and it's related to just the whole deepfake issue, just because Senator Blackburn and Senator Coons and Senator Tillis and I have worked on this really hard, and they're Blackburn and Coons are in the lead of the bill. But we have recently seen deepfake videos of Al Roker promoting a cure for high blood pressure. A deepfake to remove more than 75,000 songs with unauthorized deepfakes, including voices of Harry Styles, Beyonce. I recently met, it's not just famous people. There is a Grammy-nominated artist from Minnesota. Talk to him about what's going on with digital replicas. So there's a real concern, and it kind of gets at what Senator Schatz and I were talking about earlier with the news bill. But I just wanted to make you all aware of this legislation because there were some differences on this, and now we have gotten a coalition, including YouTube, supporting it, as well as the Recording Industry Association, Motion Picture Association, SAG-AFTRA. So it's a big deal, and I'm hoping it's something that you will all look at. But could you just comment, I would go to you, Mr. Smith first, about protecting people from having their likenesses replicated through AI without permission. And even if you all pledge to do it, our obvious concern is that there will maybe other companies that wouldn't. And that's why I think as we look at what these guardrails are, the protection of digital people's digital rights should be part of this. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, no, I think you're right to point to it. It has become a growing area of concern. During the presidential election last year, both campaigns, both political parties were concerned about the potential for deep fakes to be created. We worked with both campaigns and both parties to address that. We see it being used in really ways that I would call abusive, including of celebrities and the like. I think it starts with an ability to identify when something has been created by AI and is not a genuine, say, photographic or video image. And we do find that AI is much more capable at doing that than, say, the human eye and human judgment. I think it's right that there be certain guardrails, and some of these we can apply voluntarily. We've been doing that across the industry. OpenAI and Microsoft were both part of that last year. And there are certain uses that probably should be considered across the line and therefore should be unlawful. And I think that's where the kinds of initiatives that you're describing have a particularly important role to play.
And could you look at that legislation?
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Mr. Altman, just same question, same thing.
Sorry, of course we'd be happy to look at the legislation. I think this is a big issue and it's one coming quickly. I do not believe, I think there's a few areas to attack it. You can talk about AI that generates content, platforms that distribute it, how takedowns work, how we educate society, and how we build in robustness to expect this is going to happen. I do not believe it will be possible to stop the generation of the content. I think open source, open weight models are a great thing on the whole and something we need to pursue. But it does mean that there's going to be just a lot of these models floating around that can do this. The mass distribution, I think it's possible to put some more guardrails in place, and that seems important. But I don't want to neglect the sort of societal education piece. I think with every new technology, there's almost always some sort of new scams that come. The sooner we can get people to understand these, be on the lookout for them, talk about this as a thing that's coming and then a thing that's happening, I think the better. People are very quickly understanding that content can be AI generated and building new kinds of defenses in their own minds about it. But still, if you get a call and it sounds exactly like someone you know and they're panicked and they need help, or if you see a video that is like the videos you talked about, this gets at us in a very deep psychological way. And I think we need to build societal resilience because this is coming.
Mm-hmm. It's coming, but we can. There's got to be some ways to protect
we should do
people's
everything
privacy
for sure.
rights, and you've got to have some way to either enforce it, damages, whatever. There's just not going to be any consequences.
Absolutely, we should have all of that. Bad actors still don't always follow the laws, and so I think we need an additional shield, or whenever we can have them. But yes, we should absolutely protect that.
All right, we'll look forward to working with you on it. Thank you.
So I have to say, Senator Klobuchar's question about fakes and AI fakes made me feel guilty because I did in fact tweet out an AI-generated picture of Senator Fetterman as the Pope of Greenland. So I am guilty of doing so, although it may not be a fake. It may be a real...
Hey, parody is allowed under the law. Parody is allowed. That is different than what I'm talking about. But Senator Fetterman should respond.
Yeah, it may be real. It's a good shot, actually. All right, I have a few more questions, and then we will wrap up. Mr. Altman, what has been the most surprising use for ChatGPT you've seen? What are applications that you're seeing that are surprising?
People message ChatGPT billions of times per day, so they use it for all sorts of incredibly creative things. I will tell one personal story, which is, as mentioned earlier, I recently had a newborn. Clearly people did it, but I don't know how people figured out how to take care of newborns without ChatGPT. That has been a real lifesaver.
So I will tell you a story that I've told you before, but my teenage daughter several months ago sent me this long, detailed text, and it was emotional, and it was really well written, and I actually commented, I'm like, wow, this is really well written. She said, I used ChatGPT to write it. I'm like, wait, you're texting your dad, and you don't, it is something about the new generation that it is so seamlessly integrated into life that she's sending an email, she's doing whatever, and she doesn't even hesitate to think about going to ChatGPT to capture her thoughts.
I have complicated feelings about that.
Well, use the app and then tell me what your feelings are. Google just revealed that their search traffic on Safari declined for the first time ever.
They didn't send me a Christmas card.
Will ChatGPT replace Google as the primary search engine, and if so, when?
Probably not. I think some use cases that people use search engines
Probleme mit der Schufa, aber du brauchst sofort Geld? Bei Kreditpanda erhältst du unkompliziert einen Kredit bis zu 7.500 €, auch wenn andere schon abgesagt haben.